On a quiet July night in 1969, the world stood still. In living rooms, bars, and city squares across the globe, millions huddled around flickering black and white televisions. Some watched with breathless anticipation, others wept in awe. On the screen, a grainy image, a human figure descending a ladder and stepping into the powdery dust of another world. Neil Armstrong's voice crackled through the static. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But as cheers erupted and history was made, an unspoken question lingered. Was this the triumph of a solitary astronaut, or the result of an invisible force, a vast industrial and technological machine humming relentlessly behind the scenes? To answer, we must rewind the clock, back to a world locked in the grip of the Cold War. It was October 1957 when the Soviet Union sent Sputnik, a polished metal sphere, beeping above the clouds and into orbit. The world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik's launch sent shockwaves through the United States. In Moscow, a new era of scientific pride. In Washington, a new era of anxiety. The space race had begun. Just 4 years later, the Soviets again stunned the world. Yuri Gagarin, a smiling pilot from a collective farm, became the first human to orbit Earth. His capsule, Vostok 1, spent 108 minutes circling the planet, and when he landed, Gagarin's name became legend. In the United States, the shock was profound. The American people and their leaders felt the sting of second place. The space race was no longer just about rockets. It was about the future, about national pride, about proving which way of life would lead humanity into the stars. Enter John F. Kennedy. In a speech that echoed across generations, the young president laid down a challenge. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. His words, bold and clear, were more than rhetoric. They were a call to arms, a rallying cry to the scientists, engineers, and workers of a nation to build what had never been built, to reach further than anyone had dreamed. But how does a nation fulfill such an audacious promise? Not with a handful of astronauts or even with a single agency. It took an army, nearly 400,000 people, spread across 20,000 companies, universities, and government offices. Behind every moment of glory, an ocean of labor and ingenuity churned. At NASA's helm, thousands worked around the clock, but the agency was only the tip of the iceberg. IBM, the computing giant, built the brains of the mission, designing and manufacturing guidance systems that could fit inside a rocket and survive the rigors of space. Boeing, North American Aviation, and Douglas Aircraft stitched together the colossal Saturn V, the most powerful rocket ever flown. Grumman Aircraft Engineering designed and built the fragile, spindly lunar module, the craft that would carry 2 men down to the moon's surface and back again. Imagine a web of collaboration, each node a company or laboratory, each thread a contract, a specification, a challenge to overcome. Animated infographics could only hint at the scale. Hundreds of subcontractors, each supplying a piece of the puzzle. Some built fuel pumps that could withstand freezing temperatures. Others forged bolts to survive the fury of launch. From sprawling factories in California to tiny workshops in Ohio, America's industrial might was mobilized like never before. Yet it was not just about metal and machines. The Apollo missions sparked a revolution in technology, one that would shape the world for decades to come. At the heart of every Apollo spacecraft was a marvel of its time, the Apollo guidance computer. No bigger than a briefcase, it was the first computer to use integrated circuits on a large scale, packing what was then staggering computing power into a device small and light enough for spaceflight. Behind this innovation stood pioneers like Margaret Hamilton, the lead software engineer at MIT's Instrumentation Laboratory. Hamilton and her team wrote the code that would guide astronauts to the moon and home again, code so reliable that, in the final moments of Apollo 11's landing, it calmly handled a cascade of alarms, allowing Armstrong and Aldrin to touch down safely. The discipline of software engineering, a field barely recognized at the time, was born in the crucible of Apollo. Picture the scene. Rooms filled with stacks of punch cards, engineers hunched over blinking consoles, lines of code flowing across reams of paper. In another room, a young woman with sharp eyes and boundless curiosity checking and rechecking every instruction. The Apollo guidance computer's software was a tapestry of logic and creativity, woven under pressure where one error could mean catastrophe. But the technological revolution did not stop at computers. the demands of space travel forced engineers to push the boundaries of manufacturing, materials science, and quality control. Building a rocket capable of leaving Earth required engines of unprecedented power. The F-1 engines, 5 of which powered Saturn V's first stage, remain the most powerful single-chamber, liquid-fueled rocket engines ever built. Each F-1 was a masterpiece, a roaring inferno of fire and steel, burning 2,700 liters of kerosene and oxygen every second. To ensure these engines would not fail, NASA oversaw a relentless regime of testing. Factories roared with the clang of metal and the hiss of welding torches. Metallurgists experimented with new alloys, developing materials that could withstand the searing heat and crushing pressures of launch and space. In vast test stands in Mississippi and Alabama, engineers fired engines over and over, learning from every explosion, every malfunction, until perfection was routine. The lessons learned in these crucibles transformed industry far beyond the confines of NASA. The need for reliable, compact computers drove the development of the integrated circuit, the microchip, that would soon power calculators, personal computers, and the entire digital age. Engineers who had cut their teeth on Apollo went on to build the first generation of Silicon Valley startups, seeding a revolution that would touch every corner of daily life. Consider the ripple effects. The precision required for navigating to the moon led to the invention of technologies like GPS, now indispensable for everything from smartphone apps to air traffic control. The software engineering principles pioneered by Margaret Hamilton and her colleagues became the bedrock of modern programming, from medical devices to financial systems. Even the sensors, materials, and manufacturing techniques developed for Apollo found new life in cars, airplanes, and electronics. As the 1970s dawned, the world looked back on the moon landings as a pinnacle of human achievement. But for the engineers and entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley, Apollo's legacy was just beginning. The microchip, once a novelty, became the heart of the personal computer revolution. The same drive for innovation, the same willingness to take risks, to fail and try again, shaped a new world where information could travel at the speed of light. Yet the spirit of Apollo endures not only in history, but in the present and the future. Today, a new generation of dreamers and builders stands on the shoulders of giants. NASA's Artemis program promises to return humans to the moon, this time to stay. Private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin have joined the quest, building reusable rockets and planning missions not just to the moon, but to Mars and beyond. SpaceX's Starship, a fully reusable spacecraft, aims to make space travel as routine as air travel. Its stainless steel hull gleams under the Texas sun, a symbol of ambition and the power of industry. NASA, working hand in hand with private partners, is preparing for new lunar landings, this time with international crews, advanced robots, and the goal of building a lasting human presence. The difference today, the industrial engine behind space exploration is more global, more connected, and more agile than ever. Companies large and small, from established aerospace giants to nimble startups, work together to design, build, and test the tools of tomorrow. The lessons of Apollo, collaboration, innovation, and relentless pursuit of excellence remain at the heart of every new mission. But as we look to the stars, the challenges facing humanity are not confined to the heavens. The same technology that sends probes to distant planets also powers efforts to combat climate change, improve healthcare, and connect billions of people across the globe. The question is no longer just, where will we go next? But how will we use the tools we have built? Will the next giant leap be on Mars, or will it be here on Earth tackling the crises that threaten our future? In the end, the story of Apollo 11 is more than a tale of rockets and astronauts. It is a testament to what humans can achieve when we harness the full power of our minds, our hands, and our industries. It is proof that with vision, determination, and collaboration, even the impossible becomes possible. The first step on the moon was not only Armstrong's, it was the product of hundreds of thousands of minds and millions of hours, of factories humming day and night, of scientists, engineers, and laborers united by a common goal. Human ingenuity, amplified by industrial might, reached across the void and touched another world. So, as we gaze at the moon and wonder what comes next, let us remember, the journey to the stars is a journey of both humanity and industry, of inspiration and perspiration. Where will the next step take us? Will it be Mars, or will it be a new age of solving the great challenges here on Earth? The answer, as always, is up to us. If you enjoyed this journey through history and innovation, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. The next chapter is just beginning, and you won't want to miss it.